I am 54 years old, and I have been serving a sentence for 30 years for a crime that gave me one night in a jail cell. One night. That's all the state wanted from me. But the world wanted the rest of my life. Right now I'm sitting at my kitchen table. It's just me, a cup of coffee that went cold about 2 hours ago, and this fluorescent light above me that hums like it's trying to remind me I'm still here, still breathing, still sitting in this same chair in this same apartment with the same silence I've been swallowing since I can't even remember when. I've got my wallet in front of me, old leather, cracked down the spine like a book somebody read too many times. And inside it, folded up so neat you'd think it was something precious, there's a piece of paper, a job rejection letter, dated 1996. The ink is barely there anymore. The creases have turned white like little scars running through the words. But I don't need to read it, I've got it memorized, every single word. We appreciate your interest, however. We've decided to move forward with other candidates. Other candidates. That's a polite way of saying we saw what you are and we don't want it anywhere near us. I keep it in my wallet because I never want to forget what one night cost me. Most people carry pictures of their kids in their wallet. I carry proof that the world never forgave me. And if you're young right now, if you're out there thinking you're untouchable, I need you to sit down and listen to an old fool who learned the truth the hard way. Because I'm not here to inspire you. I'm here to scare you. And you should be scared. When I was 23 years old, I was bulletproof. At least that's what I believed. I had this leather jacket I wore everywhere, like it was armor. I walked into rooms like I owned them. I talked loud. I laughed louder. I thought the world was this big open highway, and all I had to do was keep my foot on the gas, and everything would sort itself out. I believed something back then that I want you to hear very carefully, because it is the lie that ruined my life. I believed that consequences were temporary. I believed that trouble was something you walk through, not something that follows you home and sits at your table and eats every meal with you for the next 3 decades. I had a buddy. We'll call him Marcus. Marcus was fun. Marcus always had a plan. Marcus always had somewhere to be at 2 in the morning and a reason you should come along. And one night I did. I got in the car. I didn't ask where we were going. I didn't ask what was in the back seat. I didn't ask because I was 23. And asking questions wasn't cool. Being cool. That was the whole game back then. Being cool was worth more to me than being smart. The blue lights hit the rearview mirror about 40 minutes later. I can still see them. That pulsing blue washing across the dashboard, across Marcus's face, across my hands as I put them where they told me to put them. They found things in that car that didn't belong to me. But it didn't matter. The car didn't belong to me either, and I was sitting in it. That was enough. The handcuffs were cold. I remember that. Cold and tight, and they clicked with this metallic sound that didn't sound real. It sounded like something from a movie. And that's honestly what I thought it was. A scene. A bad night. Something I'd tell a funny story about later. Remember that time I got arrested? I thought I'd be laughing about it within a month. I made bail. I showed up to court. I got my charge. I did what they told me. And when it was over, I thought it was over. That was the lie. That was the big, beautiful, devastating lie. Once you do the time, it's over. No, it is not. The time is the short part. What comes after is the real sentence. The first time I filled out a job application and saw that little box at the bottom, the one that asks, "Have you ever been convicted of a crime?" My pen hovered over it for what felt like a full minute. Such a small box, such a small question. And I checked yes, because I thought honesty was the right thing. I thought someone would see that I was being straight with them and give me a chance. Nobody gave me a chance. I watched that little checkbox eat opportunity after opportunity. I'd go into interviews wearing my best shirt, shaking hands firm, making eye contact, saying all the right things, and I could see it in their faces. The moment they looked at the paper and then looked back up at me, something shifted behind their eyes. I wasn't a person anymore. I was a liability. I was a risk. I was a box they checked to make sure their company was protected from people like me. And every rejection letter read the same. We've decided to move forward with other candidates. Forward. They gotta move forward. I stayed exactly where I was. Now I need to tell you about the day that broke me. Not the arrest. The arrest was nothing. A hard night on a hard bench with a hard lesson I was too young to learn. The day that broke me came years later, and I need you to hear every detail because this is the part I can't unfeel, no matter how many years go by. My son was 8 years old. His school was having a career day. You know the kind. Parents come in, they stand in front of the class, they talk about what they do for a living. A fireman, a nurse, a lawyer, someone's mom who works at the bank. My boy asked me to come. He asked me. He wanted me there. And I told him I'd be there. And I meant it with everything I had. I got dressed that morning like I was going to a job interview. I put on a button-down shirt I'd bought secondhand. Light blue. I ironed it twice. I even ironed the collar because I wanted it to look crisp. I rehearsed in the mirror what I was going to say. I was doing odd jobs at the time, handyman work, fixing things for people who didn't want to pay real contractors. But I was going to make it sound good. I was going to stand in front of those kids and make my son proud. I got to the school and the hallway smelled the way every elementary school hallway smells. Floor wax, construction paper, that faint sweetness of juice boxes and crayons. There were little art projects taped to the walls. Drawings of families, houses with big suns in the corner. I walked past all of it and found his classroom, and I stood outside the door and looked through that little rectangular window in the glass. I could see him, my boy, standing near the front of the room. The teacher was going down the line, asking each kid to introduce their parent. And what does your mom do? And what does your dad do? One by one, kids stood up proud. My dad's a police officer. My mom's a doctor. They were beaming. Their parents were beaming. The whole room smelled like pride and coffee from the little table they'd set up by the door. Then it was my son's turn. The teacher smiled and looked at him and said, "And what does your dad do?" And my boy froze. I watched it through the glass. I watched his mouth open and nothing came out. I watched his eyes move toward the door, toward me, and for 1 second, one single second, we made eye contact through that little window. I smiled at him. I even raised my hand a little like, "I'm here, buddy, I'm right here." and then he looked away. He looked away from me. He looked down at his shoes, and he said, quiet enough that I could barely hear it through the door, "He's not here today." The room moved on. The teacher moved on. The next kid's parents stood up and started talking about accounting or something, and the world kept spinning like nothing happened. But I couldn't move. My hand was still raised. My smile was still frozen on my face like a mask that hadn't gotten the message yet. I stood there in that hallway with the juice box smell and the crayon drawings, and I felt something inside me come apart so quietly that no one in the world heard it but me. My son didn't say I was a handyman. He didn't say I fixed things. He didn't say I was between jobs. He said I wasn't there. He erased me. Right there in front of everyone, my 8-year-old boy decided that having no father was less embarrassing than having me. I stepped back from the glass. I saw my reflection in that little window, a man in a second-hand shirt with a visitor's badge clipped to his pocket, a ghost. That's what I looked like. A ghost who showed up to haunt a place he had no business being. I walked back down that hallway, past the crayon families and the construction paper sons, past the juice box table, out the front doors, into the parking lot. I sat in my truck and I didn't start the engine. I just sat there. And I reached into my pocket, pulled out my wallet, and unfolded that rejection letter. We've decided to move forward with other candidates. I read it in that parking lot, and for the first time I understood that the letter wasn't just from an employer. It was from the whole world. It was from my son. Everyone had decided to move forward with other candidates, and I was never going to be the candidate they chose. That was the day I broke. Not because of the arrest, because of the inheritance. I had passed my shame down to my child like a gene he never asked for, and he was already learning to survive it the only way he knew how, by pretending I didn't exist. That was 17 years ago. My son is 25 now. He doesn't call. He doesn't visit. I stopped being dad a long time ago. First I was him. Then I was my mother's ex. Then I was nothing. Just silence where a father used to be. This wallet is still here. The rejection letter is still inside it. I've refolded it so many times the paper feels like cloth. The creases are white lines running through the words, like veins that bled out a long time ago. I don't keep it for motivation. I'm not one of those people who keeps their pain on the wall to remind them how far they've come. I haven't come far. I keep it as proof. Proof that the world has a long memory and no forgiveness for people who check that box. I can tell you what 6 o'clock on a Sunday evening feels like when you have nobody. The fridge hums. The clock on the wall ticks, and every tick sounds louder than the one before because there's nothing else to compete with it. No grandchildren running through the hall. No dinner to drive to. No one calling to say, "Are you coming over?" Just the hum, the tick, and me. The cell was one night. This kitchen is every night. I don't have bitterness left. Bitterness requires energy, and I spent all mine a long time ago. What I have now is something quieter, something heavier. A grief that doesn't scream anymore because it's been here so long, it's become furniture. It just sits in the room with me like it lives here, because it does. Now I want to talk to you. Yes, you. Whoever is watching this right now, and I don't care if you're 16 or 26 or 35, if you have not yet made the mistake that follows you forever, you need to hear this from a man who is living inside that forever right now. You think you're invincible. I know you do, because I did too. You think one night doesn't matter. You think you can ride with whoever, go wherever, do whatever, and walk away clean in the morning. You are wrong. You are so wrong it would be funny if it didn't destroy lives. One night, one car ride, one person you were too cool to say no to. That's all it takes. Not to ruin your weekend, to ruin your biography, the whole thing. Every chapter after that night gets rewritten by a checkbox on an application you haven't even seen yet. They don't tell you that the sentence keeps going after you leave the courthouse. They don't tell you about the job interviews that end with a handshake that means goodbye. They don't tell you about the look in your son's eyes when he decides that not here today is easier than the truth. They don't tell you about Sunday evenings in a kitchen that's so quiet you can hear your own heartbeat, and you wish you couldn't. So I'm asking you, tonight, right now, who's in your passenger seat? Where are they taking you? What checkbox are you about to create for yourself that you'll be filling in for the rest of your life? Put your pride in your pocket. Go home. Be boring. Be the one who said no. Because I promise you, no is the most powerful word you'll ever learn, and I'd give everything I have left to go back to that night and say it just once. My son has a daughter now. I found out through someone who knows someone, a little girl, my granddaughter. She doesn't know my name. She has never heard my voice. She will never sit on my knee and hear a story from her grandfather, because her father decided a long time ago that I was a story not worth telling. And that is not the judge's sentence. That's mine.